Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into the fascinating world of American English pronunciation, not just listing sounds, but really getting at the core of how Americans actually speak.
And the source material you've brought in gives us a really unique perspective on this. It's excerpts from a guide by Rachel's English, right?
Hmm.
And the author's background isn't traditional linguistics, which is interesting.
Right, she comes from applied math, computer science, and even vocal performance like singing. And that totally shapes her approach. It's based on her own experience and, investigation, kind of building a system from the ground up.
Exactly. It's very much presented as her way, how she speaks and teaches it, drawing concepts maybe from singing, like body awareness or modular thinking from computer science. It feels very personal, very applied.
Yeah, and our mission here is to sort of cut through all the complexity. This guide covers a lot, but we want to find those really important nuggets, uncover the surprising insights,
Yeah.
and figure out what you can actually do with this knowledge. It's about understanding the whole system, not just drilling isolated sounds.
Because, as the source really makes clear, sounding natural in American English is so much more than just getting single sounds right on their own.
Absolutely. And speaking of things that might surprise you, the guide actually kicks off by saying that teaching pronunciation involves opinion and that there isn't just one single right way to speak English or to teach it.
That's a really powerful starting point, actually. It sets the stage. This is one effective method based on experience, not the absolute only truth. It allows for, a more flexible mindset for the learner.
It also immediately lays out three key areas. You've got the individual sounds, okay, then the melody and rhythm, intonation, stress, all that. And then this third one, which is crucial but often gets missed, placement.
Placement. Yeah, this is where that vocal performance background really seems to come in. Placement is described as affecting the whole timbre, the quality of the sound. The guide uses a great analogy, like a violin and a flute playing the exact same notes and rhythm. They sound totally different, right?
Yeah.
Because the instrument itself is different.
Okay, I like that. And in this case, your voice is the instrument, but your body shapes the sound, gives it that quality.
Precisely. And according to this approach, American English placement is very low. Like, you should feel it resonating, vibrating down in your chest or maybe the base of your neck. And this requires one key thing, a really, really relaxed throat and neck.
Which is a major contrast with placement in lots of other languages, right? That tension might feel totally normal if it's your native tongue, maybe higher up in the face or further back.
Right. So the biggest barrier then to getting that low American placement, it's tension. Any extra tightness, neck, throat, jaw, tongue, it's going to lift that placement right up.
So if your native language uses that tension, it feels like something extra you have to actively let go of.
Exactly. It's extra engagement you need to release. It's not about forcing the sound down. It's about letting go of that tension.
Okay, that makes sense. And the source actually suggests specific relaxation exercises for the jaw, tongue, lips.
Yeah, it emphasizes the physical side of it. It's
Right.
not just in your head. It also touches on the soft palate, the back part of the roof of your mouth.
Uh-huh.
In American English, for most sounds, it lifts up to seal off your nose. That's why we don't really have nasal vowels. But for M, N, and NG, it lowers, letting air through the nose.
Okay. So if your native language does have nasal vowels, you need to really work on lifting that palate for all the other sounds.
That's a key piece of the puzzle, yeah,
Yeah.
mastering that lift.
Okay, so we've got placement, this physical foundation driven by relaxation. What's the other absolutely non-negotiable foundation from this?
Exactly. And this takes patience. It's not going to happen overnight. But that consistent, dedicated practice is what builds the new muscle memory. And the guide notes this helps both your speaking and your listening comprehension too. They're linked.
Right, right. And there's that really interesting suggestion too, kind of quirky. Start by imitating any vocal sounds, not just English ones.
Yes. And the insight there is actually brilliant, I think. It's not just about nailing specific English sounds right away. It's about improving your general ability to imitate anything you hear. And, maybe more importantly, getting comfortable making sounds.
Yeah.
And using your mouth, tongue, throat
Yeah.
in ways that might feel funny or foreign at first.
Because, yeah, let's face it, English is foreign if it's not your first language. And the source points out that resistance, that feeling of this feels weird, is a huge barrier. English should feel foreign, maybe a little awkward when you're making these new movements.
You absolutely have to push through that initial awkwardness. It's part of the process.
Okay, so with that groundwork placement, practice, let's move into the specific sounds. The source emphasizes learning these sounds not just in isolation, right? But with rhythm and intonation and in stressed and unstressed syllables.
Yeah, that integrated approach is really key, moving away from just staring at phonetic charts alone.
So when it comes to vowels, the guide presents them in both stressed and unstressed forms, and it highlights some notorious trouble spots, things that are vital for clarity.
Definitely. Like the difference between AH, like in Father 2, and AA, like in Cat A, that's a big one.
Uh-huh.
Or those subtle but crucial differences between EH in bed, IH2 in sit, and EEI in C. Your language might not make those distinctions, but English does. They change the meaning.
And the guide suggests using minimal pairs for practice, like top versus tap, or the classic beach versus bitch.
Yeah, and audio tests to help train your ear and your mouth. It gives some cues on mouth position, too, like how the jaw drops more for EH than for IHD. Little physical tips.
Okay, then diphthongs. These are mostly two vowel sounds together.
Mostly, yeah. And the critical insight, the source says, is that they are all about movement, a glide from one position to another.
Yes, the glide, like OHO in no. It's not just a single O sound, it's a movement.
Right. The jaw drops, then relaxes up, and crucially, the lips round. The source points out, if you skip that lip rounding, it can sound like AWO or AHDO. Totally different word.
Wow, okay, so the ending movement is vital. What about OWA, like in now?
Similar idea, starts wide, jaw dropped, tongue flat, then the lips round as the jaw relaxes up. Again, no lip rounding, no OW sound. It might sound like AEWO or AHO.
And AIA, like in by, starts wide too.
Similar start, yeah, jaw drop, tongue flat, but it ends without the lip rounding. The movement is different. It's more about arching the front of the tongue up while the tip stays down.
Gotcha. And AYE, like see.
That involves the tongue moving up into an arched position. It's all about that motion.
The guide even includes EWG here, right? Even though it starts with a consonant sound.
Yeah, it technically starts with that YJ sound, but it's grouped here because it requires that specific tongue position plus lip rounding, like the other diphthongs.
Okay, moving on to consonants then. Fricatives like FNVV.
Right, unvoiced versus voiced.
Yeah.
Made with the bottom lip touching the top front teeth. And the source notes, your lips have to be loose, relaxed enough to vibrate for the voiced VV.
You can hold those sounds out, right, to feel the position.
Exactly. Good practice technique. Same for S and ZZ, unvoiced versus voiced. And here's a really surprising fact from the source. A lot of S's in American English actually sound like Z's Z.
Wait, really? Like there's no clear rule?
Apparently not a simple one. You just have to learn which words do it. Trying to make every single S a sharp, clear S sound actually sounds unnatural, especially the guide notes for Spanish speakers.
Huh. So you have to train your ear to catch that Z sound where you might expect an S. That's interesting.
The common point of confusion, yeah.
Okay, and then the big one. The American R. The source just says it's hard, basically.
Pretty much. It mentions two common tongue positions, tip curled up or tip pulled down with the back of the tongue bunched up. But the key is the tip never touches anything.
Right. And the crucial insight here is that the American R is a continuous sound. You can hold it out.
Yes. That's fundamentally different from the quick flap R or trilled R in many other languages. The source points out that using that quick flap R for the American R is a major accent marker. It makes speech sound kind of choppy because to American ears, that flap sounds like R flap, T or D.
Ah, okay. So practicing holding that R sound out to you helps build the right muscle memory for that continuous sound.
Exactly. Solidify the position.
And of course, LL versus RU, the classic mix-up.
Yeah, the source stresses they have totally different tongue positions. You can actually check in a mirror. And again, holding both sounds out chair helps feel and solidify those distinct positions.
Okay, so we've covered the physical base, the individual sounds, but here's where it gets really interesting, I think. It's not just about saying sounds right in isolation. It's how they connect and flow in real speech. The insight that fluency is a whole system.
This is absolutely critical. This is where we get into things like consonant clusters, linking words together, rhythm, reductions, contractions. These are often the things that make spoken American English sound so fast, maybe even confusing at first, but also so fluid.
Right, consonant clusters, they can be tough. R clusters, for example.
Yeah, they're tricky. The source suggests practicing them slowly, really focusing on holding out that R sound within the cluster, like street, hold the R, street.
Okay. And I had that interesting insight about TR and DR sounding like CHR, T and JR, D up. Like train sounding like crane.
Yes. It explains it's because you start rounding your lips for the R before you even finish the T or D.
Yeah.
And that lip rounding influences the TD sound, changing its quality slightly towards CHJ.
Fascinating. And S clusters. Like street again.
Those could be hard too, especially if your native language tends to add a vowel before them, like saying street. The guide says you have to consciously break that habit.
Gotcha. And stop consonants in clusters, like the T in meltdown.
Often have no audible release. You form the T, stop the air briefly, but then move straight into the D without a poo sound. Mel Starp down.
Okay. But thankfully, there are firm rules for the S's and ed ending.
Yes, those are predictable, based on the final sound of the base word. That's a relief. One less thing to guess.
Definitely. Okay, moving to linking. This seems fundamental for sounding smooth.
Totally. The source emphasizes words aren't islands, they connect. Air should flow forward. Don't stop it between words.
And the flap TD rule extends across word boundaries. That's huge.
Yes, major insight. If a T or D comes between vowel or diphthong sounds, even if one sound ends a word and the next starts the next word, it becomes that quick flap TD.
So about it becomes about it.
Exactly. Or get up becomes get up. This is a massive part of why spoken English sounds so different from how it's written.
Wow. Okay. There's also consonant to consonant linking.
Yeah, that's less about a sound change. It's more about just smooth connection. The guide mentions if a word ends and the next starts with the same consonant like bus stop, you only make the sound once, bus stop.
Right.
And stop consonants still create that tiny pause by stopping airflow, but the voice or energy keeps moving forward. Wait for me becomes wait stop for me. The flow continues underneath the stop.
Okay, rhythm and intonation next. Starting with words, multi-syllable words.
Right. The guide says the primary stress is the anchor. It's the loudest, clearest, longest syllable.
Yeah.
And it has that characteristic up then down pitch shape, like a little curve.
And secondary stress, less important.
Much less prominent. Often sounds closer to unstressed syllables,
Right.
actually. You don't need to worry about it as much.
Okay. And the unstressed syllables, this seems critical.
Absolutely critical for sounding natural. They need to be extremely short, flat in pitch, quiet, very little energy. The source encourages you to challenge yourself. How short can you possibly make them? Making too long or too clear is a really common sign of a non-native accent.
So really clutch them down. Okay. The guide gives some general stress rules, too, and mentions abbreviations.
Yeah, like two-syllable nouns often stress the first syllable. Suffixes can change stress. And abbreviations, yeah, some are letter names like HBO, some are pronounced like words. NASA, you just learn them.
Okay, now applying this to whole sentences.
The rule of thumb is stress the content words. Nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs, they carry the meaning, so make them clear, give them that stress curve.
And the function words, pronouns, prepositions, articles, helping verbs.
Usually unstressed. Quick, flat, low energy. They provide the grammar, but not the core meaning.
And the overall sentence intonation, pitch going down for statements.
Generally, yeah. Falling pitch at the end of statements. Rising pitch for yes-no questions. And within the sentence, those stressed content words still get their little up-down pitch shape.
Which leads us perfectly into reductions and contractions. This might be the most counterintuitive part for learners, but you're saying it's essential?
Absolutely essential for sounding natural. Those unstressed function words. They don't just get quieter, they often get reduced, meaning they're said so quickly they don't need to be clear, their sounds change.
This is where vowels often change to the schwa, or sounds just disappear.
Exactly, like TH, D, or H sounds can just drop out. The source gives tons of examples, and yeah, this is where you find some real surprises.
Like R-E or R, and you're all reducing to just the schwa R sound too.
Yeah, so R and R can sound identical when reduced, like we're late and we're late. And FRR sounds different from the number 4 or, because 4 is a content word. It doesn't reduce.
Whoa. Okay, pay and that also reduce.
Usually, yeah. Though that keeps its full sound in specific cases like after, or before when talking about time. After that happened, full sound there.
Interesting exception. And dropping H.
Very common in function words starting with H, like him, her, have, has, when they're not at the very start of a phrase or thought group. The classic example is give it to her, sounding like give it to her, or by her, sounding exactly like the word buyer.
Wow, okay. Them reduces to him.
Yep, very common. And O reduces to re or even just cup coffee. Both are natural if they're linked smoothly and said quickly.
And the guide highlights can versus can't. This is crucial.
Super crucial. Can almost always reduces to han with the schwa, quick and unstressed, but can't Can't never reduces. It keeps the AAA vowel and has that abrupt stop quality from the T.
So the reduction or lack of it is often the main clue for native speakers, not necessarily hearing a clear T sound on can't.
Exactly. That difference in vowel sound and length is huge.
Okay, what other common reductions? Dodos, unand.
Yeah. Do you know who's reduce? AN are super quick. And often drops the D, sounding just like AN. Bread and butter.
The E has two pronunciations, right?
Yep. The A before vowels, the A before consonants, both very fast. AS was, because often end in a quick raised sound.
And should, would, could.
Reduced significantly.
Yeah.
Often to tade, or even just a WT, dropping T entirely if the next word starts with a consonant. If followed by a vowel, the D might become a flap.
Okay, so that's reductions. What about contractions? NT contractions.
Like don't, can't, isn't. They combine the N sound with a stop quality from the 10. Gives them an abrupt feeling. The source notes, you can drop that final T stop if it's not at the end of a phrase, like I don't know. But including the stop is generally clearer, especially when learning.
Right, and to have contractions, he's.
Very common, quick, often unstressed. And yeah, many sound the same. She is, and she is both become she's. They can reduce even further, dropping the HEs becomes E's, or even the vowel. It's can't sound like just yes. Question words also contract. Whose, what's, where's.
Modal verbs plus HAVE, like would've, should've.
Yep. However, it reduces heavily there, usually to nave, or even just dropping the V sound. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, both are perfectly natural.
And the LL contractions for will, I'll, you'll, it'll.
Will reduces to the dark L sound, often preceded by a schwa. So I'll throw you'll gel. The tricky part, the source notes, is in words like it'll, what'll, that'll. The T before the ill becomes a flap T. So it'll is A. Nailing that flap T in a dark L without bouncing the tongue takes practice.
Yeah, I can see that being tricky. Lastly, the D contractions. For would, had, de-ed.
Right. And many sound the same again. I would and I had both become I'd. He would, he had is he'd. DD contracts mostly in questions. YD becomes wide as E'd. These usually add a D sound, sometimes red or E'd, depending on the preceding sound. And what did often reduces massively to just change it.
Yet did. Okay. The source also mentioned why question words having two pronunciations.
Yeah, like what's, where, when. Some speakers use a plain wait, others add a little puff of air, like jetty debo. Both are common.
Wow. So putting it all together, it really feels like sounding natural isn't just about the sounds. It's this whole dynamic system.
Exactly. Physical relaxation, linking sound smoothly, managing stress and rhythm, and intentionally reducing those function words. It's complex, but it's how the language flows.
So how does the source suggest putting all this into practice? It's not just theory, right?
Definitely not. It emphasizes using real examples, real dialogues. And one really powerful technique highlighted is using slow motion audio. When you slow down native speech, you can actually see and hear things you miss at full speed. The intonation waves, how quiet and short those unstressed words really are, the specific mouth movements, the linking.
Makes the invisible visible. I like that.
Yeah, and the source suggests really active study. Like get a transcript, listen over and over, or mark everything up. Where's the stress? Which words are reduced so much you can barely hear them? Where are the pauses? What kind of T sound is that? Contractions like gonna, wanna, gotta, reductions, intonation patterns.
Like becoming a detective of spoken English.
Kind of. And then the practice method is rigorous.
Yeah.
Imitate exactly what you mark. Practice slowly first. Repeat it 10, 20 times until it feels right, comfortable, automatic. Then speed it up, but maintain those correct movements and that smooth flow.
And using first to get the rhythm.
Yeah, that suggestion to just hum or use to mimic the intonation and flow before adding the words, that's genius for focusing purely on the musicality first.
Talking out loud is crucial too, right? Even if you're alone.
Absolutely. And recording yourself.
Yeah.
That's non-negotiable according to the source. You need to hear what others hear. It helps you spot if your speech is choppy, if you need more linking, more smoothness, if your reductions aren't quite there.
The Ben Franklin exercise mentioned sounds like the ultimate version of this.
Pretty much. Transcribing native speech in minute detail, marking every feature, and then imitating it precisely. It's intense, but effective.
And the core message on practice is just consistency.
Consistency is everything. Even just 10 or 20 minutes a day, done consistently, builds that new muscle memory, leads to dramatic improvement over time. It's about building new habits.
Not just learning facts.
Right. It's physical.
So wrapping this up, what does this whole deep dive into the source material really mean for you, the listener? It means achieving that natural sound in American English is, well, it's a full body exercise. It involves relaxation, connection, a kind of musicality, and intentionally reducing sounds in ways that might feel totally wrong or counterintuitive at first.
Yeah, it's about embracing the reality that spoken American English isn't just a super clear pronunciation of every single word on the page. It's a flow, a rhythm, a dance between clarity and reduction.
And if sounding American, according to this approach, requires making sounds or using your voice and body in ways that might feel undeniably funny or foreign, which the source flags as a major hurdle, then that leaves us with this final thought for you to consider this week. What new, maybe uncomfortable sound or pronunciation pattern are you willing to actively explore and practice, pushing past that initial weirdness to unlock a more natural flow in your own speech?
Because stepping outside that comfort zone, that's really where the progress happens.